So my name is Crystal Edwards. I work with the Central Arkansas Library System. We're really excited to have Dr. Dan Scheinman with us today. He is the Plants for Birds Program Manager for Audubon Delta, which is a regional office of the National Audubon Society based at the Little Rock Audubon Center. Dan has a BS from Cornell, a MS from Eastern Illinois University, and a PhD from Purdue. He and his coworkers advocate for birds, restore wildlife habitat, and help Arkansans improve their local environments. He has been birding for over 25 years. Since moving to Arkansas in 2005 to work for Audubon, he has seen 365 of the 422 bird species documented in the state of Arkansas. So Dan, if you're ready, go ahead, and I'm gonna stop my video and mute myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. And thank you everyone for tuning in today. I appreciate the Central Arkansas Library System's mission to educate people on a variety of topics. And I'm happy to share this one that is near and dear to my heart, something I've been working on for a number of years, and that is Fourche Creek. And Audubon is a member of the Friends of Fourche Creek, which is a collaboration of a whole bunch of organizations that are working together, government agencies, nonprofits, businesses, even concerned individuals. We all share a goal of restoring and revitalizing Fourche Creek, which is Little Rock's main waterway. On this map, the gray area is the boundaries of the city of Little Rock and neighboring communities, and over 70% of Little Rock drains into Fourche Creek. The area outlined in black, that's the Fourche Creek watershed. The watershed is an area in which all the water that falls in that area flows down to a common location, and in this case, that's Fourche Creek. Then Fourche Creek flows into the Arkansas River, which flows into the Mississippi, which flows into the Gulf of Mexico. So things that happen here in the Fourche Creek watershed have a much wider impact. So we're interested in Fourche Creek, and we're especially interested in this area, this part of Fourche Creek that is called Fourche Bottoms. Fourche Bottoms is 1,800 acres of bottomland hardwood forest. It is the largest green space in the city. It's actually larger than Burns Park. And it can be a fantastic ecological and recreational gem for Little Rock if we do some things to improve it. And that's in part what Friends of Fourche Creek is trying to do. The Fourche Bottoms it's beautiful in there. If you go floating in Fourche Bottoms, except for the hum of the traffic noise from surrounding highways, you could really feel like you are somewhere far away from the city of Little Rock. There are big old cypress trees in there, hundreds of years old. There's lots of things you can do in Fourche Bottoms. You can float, fish, kayak, bird watch. There's lots of wildlife that occurs in Fourche Bottoms that would not necessarily be in Little Rock if it wasn't for Fourche Creek and its tributaries and its wetlands. But as this photo illustrates, there are issues with fully enjoying and appreciating Fourche Creek. And that, of course, is pollution, with floatable trash being just one type of pollution in the creek, the most visible type of pollution in the creek. But there's other issues too. There are sediments from erosion and construction, heavy metals from industry, oil and antifreeze from people changing their cars on their driveways and letting it spill into the street. There are sewer overflows that happen during high flood events, although Central Arkansas Water is working diligently to fix all of those issues, the sewer overflows. So, being an urban waterway, Fourche Creek does see its share of pollution and abuse. Friends of Fourche Creek, we primarily have been focused over the years on floatable trash because it is the most visible and tangible type of pollution in the creek. And this photo just illustrates some of the big trash accumulations that occur in Fourche bottoms built up over the years. And it's important to note that all the trash you see in this photo, even that boat, none of that stuff was dumped at this site. All of this came from somewhere upstream in the 108,800 acre watershed, and stormwaters washed it down to this point where it got caught, hung up on a large cypress tree that fell into the creek. And it's just frustrating where the majority of that floatable trash are bottles and cans that could have been recycled, should have been recycled, and now can't be recycled because they are just so contaminated with mud and crud. Although the number of bottles and cans that would end up in Fourche Creek would be significantly reduced if our state had passed a bottle bill. If we had, 5 cents for redeeming bottles, that is proven to reduce trash in other cities. Another big source of floatable trash is styrofoam containers, takeout containers. And these things just never break down. All they do is break up into tiny little pieces that are all too easy for fish and other wildlife to swallow. It would be wonderful if we had a styrofoam container ban in Little Rock and we use more sustainable materials for our to-go. And then there's lots of plastic bags that get blown around out there and end up in the trees and again, break down to tiny little particles that you just can't pick up. And another thing that would be helpful is if we had a plastic bag ban, or at least incentives for people to use reusable bags instead of taking plastic bags. So one of the main activities that Friends of Fourche Creek has taken on over the years is to deal with floatable trash, to go in and tackle those big trash piles that have accumulated in Fourche bottoms and other points along Fourche Creek. So we've mobilized a number of volunteer events over the years to take out literally tons of trash. The volunteers take out the trash on the water, on the land. We have people representing a whole bunch of organizations, community organizations coming to help us out, taking out hundreds and hundreds of tires over the years. And I appreciate Davis Tire Company, Rubber Company in Little Rock that takes all of our tires for free. And then also want to give a special shout out to the Arkansas Canoe Club. They, more than any organization, they work tirelessly to pull out trash and especially big debris from Fourche Creek. And they do this sort of thing all over the state. Like they do it for fun. Anytime they go floating on any creek, they also pull out trash. And that's something that I would hope everyone would do. If you're going to go and float, fish, hike, anywhere you are, you see trash, pick up some trash, pick up that litter, help us tackle this problem. So going back to this trash pile, this is the first one that we tackled as Friends of Fourche Creek, our first volunteer day. And we had 40 people show up and spend 4 hours crawling all over this thing like ants. And in that time, we turned it from this to this. Significant improvement. But of course, we recognize that if we just stop there, trash would accumulate at this site over time because, again, it's coming from upstream. How does trash get into our creeks? Well, some of it is blown directly in, but most of it comes from our storm drains. In Little Rock, like in so many cities around the country, the sewer system is separate from the storm system. So of course, water from our toilets and our sinks goes to a wastewater treatment plant and is treated before being released. But with storm water, rainwater, that stuff goes into a storm drain and goes directly to the nearest waterway untreated. So any trash on the street, cans, bottles, styrofoam container, oil, antifreeze, yard waste, dog waste, all that stuff is washed by stormwater into the storms, the storm system, and right into our waterways where it acts as pollutants. And that's why it's so important to not, of course, not litter in the first place, but to pick up litter from the streets and sidewalk. It's way easier to pick it up off the streets and try to wade into the creek and get that stuff. So another thing we do is encourage people to adopt a street, which is a program run by the City of Little Rock with Keep Little Rock Beautiful. So individuals or organizations can adopt a street and pledge to go out and pick up your portion of the street a few times a year. To let people know that link between litter on the streets, storm drains, and water quality. We've also had volunteers go around over the years and put these storm drain markers that say, do not pollute, drains directly to Fourche Creek. You may have seen these around town. Of course, these are small. They do wear off over time. So to have a bigger impact, a bigger visual splash, another project that we took on from 2015 to 2020 was the Drain Smart program, where we recruited artists to paint eye-catching murals on storm drains around town. And these murals have a variety of themes, but they all have to have some kind of drains to creek, do not pollute message on them. And this way we beautify the city, we use public art, which people love, as a way to teach more people about storm drains and why they should not litter. And I'll give you a few examples of the murals that are out there. And not coincidentally, these are all by libraries around Little Rock. So this one is Make a Splash. It was painted last year. It's at the main library in downtown. This one is by the D. Brown Library. It's by Debbie Doss, who is also a member of the Arkansas Canoe Club. One of my favorites. The other one at the D. Brown Library is Type Flow. And then this one is at the Clinton Children's Library. And this mural is so big, I cannot get the entire thing in one photo. So I encourage you to go and see it for yourself. And in fact, you can see all of the storm drains. There's over 100 of them that have been painted in Little Rock, North Little Rock, Bryant, as well as other towns. So we have all the photos on the Drain Smart website, drain-smart.org. And there's also an interactive map too, so you can see locations for all of them. And we tend to have them clustered so you can go walk from one to another. So in addition to trying to clean up Fourche Creek and prevent pollutants from getting in there in the first place, we also want to encourage people to recreate on Fourche Creek, because we do think the more people who use it, the more people who will appreciate it and want to preserve it. So one of the things that we accomplished was we got Arkansas Game and Fish Commission to designate the section of Fourche Creek that flows through Fourche Bottoms as an official Arkansas water trail. It is the first urban water trail in Arkansas. And then we also, down the road, would like to get Fourche Bottoms renamed Fourche Creek Preserve to let people know that this is a natural area worth preserving. It's not really a place where you want to go put in a soccer field or something like that, because it's a bottomland hardwood forest and it floods, and it's supposed to flood. It's supposed to hold and store floodwaters to help alleviate flooding elsewhere. So it's meant to be a natural area. And it really is a beautiful float. It's a 4.4 mile float on that section of Fourche Creek. The put-in area is at Benny Craig. The upstream put-in area is at Benny Craig Park, a city park. There's a concrete boat ramp there. And then just last week, I learned that a new boat ramp is being constructed at Interstate Park, which is the downstream side of the access to Fourche Bottoms. There is a small ramp there, but the city of Little Rock is now building a much improved ramp and parking lot there. And Fourche Creek is floatable based on water levels. If the water levels are low, you can always put in an interstate park and float upstream, because that section tends to be deeper, wider, and more consistently floatable. We have had volunteers put in some land trails from Interstate Park into Fourche Bottoms, although I don't think they've been maintained recently. And then also, I'm excited because a much bigger trail system is coming. The Southwest Trail is already under construction in certain areas. And the Southwest Trail is going to connect Hot Springs National Park to Central High National Historic Site. And this trail is going to go through Fourche Bottoms. And when that is done, that's going to bring thousands of people into Fourche Bottoms to see the natural beauty of that area. And then being Audubon, our big thing really is bird habitat. And a few years ago, we had a forest stand inventory done in Fourche Bottoms, and we found that Fourche Bottoms is overstocked, meaning there's too many trees, not enough sun getting to the understory. So the biodiversity of Fourche Bottoms is in decline. It's not a healthy forest. And it needs some bird-friendly forest management to thin some trees, let in more light, and encourage native plants to grow and provide more food and shelter for birds. So another thing that I'm working on is trying to convince the city of Little Rock to begin bird-friendly forestry in Fourche Bottoms. If you want to learn more about Fourche Creek and see the access points to Fourche Creek, there are multiple city parks that are along Fourche Creek and its tributaries. There's certain points where you can put in and float. If you want to learn more about the wildlife of Fourche Creek, you can visit our website, fourchecreek.org, which redirects you to Audubon, Arkansas's Fourche Creek page. You can follow us on Facebook and see the latest things that are going on and any events that are going on. And then lastly, I know that Fourche Creek faces a lot of problems. It's a big area to tackle. There are a lot of issues with Fourche Creek, a lot of sources of pollutants. It's going to take a long time to get Fourche Creek where we want it to be. But I'm heartened by the fact that all over this country, there are groups like us that are working together to beautify their local waterways, to clean it up, to plant trees, to do the things that need to be done to improve their natural resources and make their cities a better place to live. And it takes time, it takes volunteers, it takes people with vision and drive, but it can be done. And it has been done here, like with the river trail. Before the river trail became a thing, there are people who said that, why should we invest the time and money and effort on that? Why should we do this kind of thing? But I think now that the Arkansas River Trail is done, no one would say that that was a bad investment, that that was a bad thing. In fact, it's a great thing, right? For the quality of life, for the city of Little Rock, for residents, for visitors. And I believe that if we can accomplish the vision of the Friends of Fourche Creek, that Fourche Creek, Fourche Bottoms can be just as great of a recreational resource, an economic boom, quality of life improvement for Little Rock as the Arkansas River Trail has been. And lastly, I want to leave you with our vision for Fourche Creek. This is a landscape architect student's vision for Fourche Bottoms. It's a clean flowing creek where people can fish, float, hike, bike, bird, and escape the city, all while still being in the heart of the city. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Okay, if anybody has a question or comment, please put that in the Q&A or in the chat. And thank you, Dr. Scheinman, for that presentation. That was really, really interesting. I have some questions for you, actually. So the first thing I want to ask you is about bird-friendly forestry. Can you go into a little bit more detail about what that means and how, I'm assuming that can also kind of translate into, people's own properties, how they handle what they plant. So,
Absolutely, yeah. So it's really it's what Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, and Fish and Wildlife Service are already doing on their own, on the public lands that they manage. It's making sure that there's not too many trees, that sunlight gets to the forest floor so that wildflowers and shrubs can grow up and provide structure, different layers in the forest. So there's more niches for more birds and more insects and that kind of thing, fighting invasive plants and allowing little tiny trees to have enough sunlight to become new canopy trees, while the old trees die and fall over and become dead wood that so much wildlife and fungi need. So it's a host of things. And once that gets going in Fourche Bottoms, then I think the city of Little Rock will see the benefits of it and manage more forested acres for birds and other wildlife.
okay, we do have something in the Q&A. Andrew Denton says, do you recommend any legislative advocacy? And is Friends of Fourche Creek involved in that for plastic bag bans, etc.?
It's not something that we're planning on doing in the near future. There have been some groups that have tried to get a bottle bill passed. It's actually been tried in Arkansas a number of times over the years and has always failed. I think big business has a lot of power and influence over our legislators, and they tend to stop that kind of stuff. I think last I heard, a bottle bill was like referred back to committee or research or something. So I don't know if there's any plans from the previous organizers to try to tackle that again. There also was a group for a while that was trying to look at a styrofoam ban for the city and that kind of thing, but they haven't been successful so far. But I'm hopeful that someone will take up that banner and maybe make some headway.
I do know that some of the big festivals in Little Rock, the organizers have worked toward making those more sustainable and like producing less waste. Do you think that those kinds of things are a move in the right direction?
Yeah, so much of the environmental movement is based upon individual actions adding up to a greater whole. So anytime individuals, events, businesses choose to do the right thing, it definitely helps.
So one thing I wanted to ask more about Fourche Creek Bottoms, because I've actually never been there. And so if you're talking to somebody who's never been there, what would you tell them to get them really excited about it, to visit? Like, what are the things that they might find? What's the greatest thing about Fourche Creek Bottoms?
Well, it's just a beautiful float. You don't need to go drive all the way to White River, Cache River, to have a beautiful float experience. You can do it right here in the city of Little Rock. It's just, especially in the fall when the trees turn color, it's really, really nice.
Okay, another question from Andrew. I'm excited to hear about the plans for a trail through Fourche Creek Bottoms. Is there more info on that, on the trail?
Nothing right now. So sorry about that. Nothing right now is planned for Fourche Creek trail wise. The Southwest Trail is being planned in sections. So I'm not sure when they might get around to kind of planning sections more in the Little Rock area. But when they do get to that, then definitely, Audubon and others want to be involved and help with the planning and execution of those trails.
And Hayden wants to know, why is the focus on birds?
Audubon is a bird conservation organization, and I am an ornithologist and a birder. So that is always why, that's where my focus lies, and that's motivates everything that I do. So, we see Fourche Creek. One thing that birds and people share is a need for clean water. So cleaning up Fourche Creek is helpful for us as it is for birds, and improving the habitats along Fourche Creek helps us and it helps birds. And getting people out onto the creek and into nature and enjoying and appreciating nature gets more people to care about nature and birds, and then take other actions that help birds and the environment.
And I want to know, since you're a birder and I'm kind of a novice birder, I was fascinated that you've seen 365 of the 422, is that right? Bird species recorded in Arkansas. So what's like at the top of your list for an Arkansas, for your next Arkansas bird?
That bird that I want to see, that I haven't seen yet. Well, I'm at the point now where I've seen all the common, regularly occurring species. So now it's just the rare birds, birds that don't normally occur in Arkansas. Their ranges are elsewhere, and for various reasons, they may show up in the state. There's just no predicting when that will occur again or for the first time. So just have to kind of either be out looking and be lucky, or be on the bird listserv or the Facebook groups and watch out for someone who's found one of those rare birds, and then get out there and go chase that bird and go see that thing. So well, I guess one species I would love to see in the state that I've seen elsewhere is a black-throated blue warbler. That's beautiful, dark blue on the back and a black throat. And Arkansas is just a little too far west for that bird, but every once in a while you'll get one that's migrating through. And so you just have to be lucky to be in the right place at the right time. It's not one you can really just chase. They're just there one day and then they're off again.
So I think that's all of our questions. If anybody has any last thing, better put it in quick. Thank you so much, Dr. Shyman. It's been great having you here. Thanks for, educating us about the importance of Fourche Creek watershed and Fourche Creek bottoms. I'm excited to see what happens here with that. And thank you to all of our attendees.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.